we're starting from scratch. Like, I really am very curious about this, about She Leads for Legacy, about what this research is, where it's all fitting. Like, I really would love to hear from myself and share with my network about this exciting piece of work. So take it away and tell me.
Oh, marvelous. Thank you so much. So She Leads for Legacy, as you know, is a community which is really about promoting the acceleration of Black women into senior leadership and board level positions.
Yeah.
And what we've recognized on this journey is that without data, there really is no existence of a problem. There really are no challenges. If there's no data to say this is the problem, here are the gaps, here are the barriers, then they get overlooked, they don't get seen, and we're invisible. And so we spoke with Manchester University, who've embarked on a series of research projects with local businesses. And the idea is to get local PhD students to be working on areas that are relevant to industry and relevant to business, and to support them to ensure that academia really has a context and a use, rather than just being within its own sort of echo chamber. So we contacted the university and said, we would love to be involved in this. We are working with Black women, and what we recognize is that there just isn't enough data in relation to our experiences. There's a lot of data on gender. There's a lot of data, an emerging amount of data in relation to race and ethnicity, but where those two intersect, there's a woeful absence. And in particular, Dee, we are emerging from lockdown, and we know that the Black and Asian community have been disproportionately impacted by COVID, but we want to really drill down into that and understand because when we do know, when we do have an understanding, then we're better able to make provision to help us to overcome those challenges and deal with those barriers and truly build back better in a way which is inclusive. So we were thrilled when Manchester University said, yes, we've got the funding for this. We want to work alongside you. We've got PhD students who really want to do this. They're from a range of different backgrounds. So they're all women who are from different backgrounds, different countries around the world, who have said, we really want to be involved in this. They've set up their own group and they're really running with this. And so what we
so before you go on, I mean, there's just so much that you're saying. It's so exciting. First of all, you know, just this whole thing about the need for data, like sometimes it infuriates me because everyone and its cat knows that women, brilliant Black women, are excluded in nuanced ways. Like everyone knows that. I don't care if there's no data, like everyone knows.
Yes.
And so I really question this reluctance to address things that we really know in the absence of data.
Yeah.
So that's really like big for me as I'm listening to you talk. Why don't we just care because it's real?
Yeah.
And why don't just acknowledge what we know is real? Like that's question for me. So it's good that we're doing this piece of research. What's the hypothesis, and what are some of the things that you think the research is going to show us?
Thank you. So what we have I mean, we've got anecdotally the positions that women have articulated by way of challenge. We know, for example, don't we, that women, Black women, that women in general have left the workforce at higher rates than our counterparts. Yeah. We know that women have had the bulk share, the lion's share of care in the home, whether that be care for the children or care for aging parents. We know anecdotally that in terms of climbing the career ladder, there are still barriers that women in general face. Yeah. We also know that COVID has disproportionately affected the Black and Asian communities, but of course, for the purpose of this conversation, disproportionately affected the Black community. The specific reasons around that are yet to be explored and determined, but what we do know is that that's the case.
Yeah.
And so the hypothesis is fundamentally COVID has disproportionately impacted Black women in the workplace. And what the research is seeking to really unearth and mine is how, in what way specifically, what are the specific issues that women are pointing to as being their experience in the workplace. And I completely understand what you're saying in relation to data, Dee, that it's almost in this case. Fortunately, we're also in a society where unless there is data, it doesn't get seen. Yeah. And also what data does is it provides a form of benchmarking. It enables us to see where are we now? What is our start point? And therefore, when we're setting forward the ambitions and the goals that we've got something to benchmark it against as evidence of improvement and growth.
Yeah, and so that's really exciting. So what kind of improvement and growth are you really hoping will come out of this research and your work with supporting the tranche and the transition of Black women into senior roles?
I think the first thing that I would like to see is the acceptance and the acknowledgement of the credibility and the veracity of our stories. That when we assert, when we raise our voices in relation to discrimination in the workplace, lack of access and lack of opportunity, we're not playing a race card. That there is sincerity in what we're saying, and that it's not simply in our head. So raising awareness of our stories, because in the first place, you can't change what isn't seen and what people aren't aware of. So being seen and being heard, it almost holds intrinsic value, Dee. The number of times where I've heard Black women say, because I've heard someone else's story shared, it meant that it was out of my own head and into the real world and validated.
Yeah.
So just hearing that there are other women who've experienced this, who have faced this challenge, who have come up against this opposition, and that I'm not alone, will be empowering for women in and of itself. Yeah. And then in relation to our ally organizations and so on, being aware that in your workforce, there are women now who will be experiencing all manner of challenge, all manner of difficulty just to be in the workplace, just to stay in the workplace, and therefore to think more inclusively about the provision that you make for them. How can you curate an environment where Black women feel as though their potential can be realized? And my hope is that this piece of research enables those conversations to happen where we can move toward more inclusive, empowered environments for Black women. And ultimately, which is our ultimate goal within She Leads for Legacy, women being able and empowered and equipped to climb those career ladders with equal opportunity to their counterparts.
Yeah, gosh, so exciting. You're saying so much. And I know that we don't have much time for this conversation, but we will keep talking. But the question that I have is, why is it important that people are able to climb and attain and achieve according to their potential? Why is it such a big deal that Black women in particular are enabled to reach these heights?
There are so many layers of response to that question. If we just start with the sort of cold, hard economic case. Yeah. So there's been some brilliant research done by Business in the Community. And Business in the Community have said that if in the UK we can get this conversation and action around race equality right, if we can do this better, we can add up to £24 billion to our GDP. That's an estimated 1.3% of the GDP will be added to the economy if we get this right. So this isn't just about a pocket of people who are crying from the fringes saying heroes. Actually, in a time we're very much focused as an economy on how we can build back better.
Yes.
It is the most abject of poverty mindsets then for us as a society not to acknowledge this opportune moment to be inclusive in our growth. So just that's the business case. What I also feel is we can just look at how there's tons of research in how when women have economic wealth, how that impacts communities in a way in which it doesn't with our male counterparts.
Yeah.
We think differently. We think more communally. We think in terms of legacy.
Yeah.
Really interesting piece of research that came out in relation to, I think it was Kenya, if I'm not mistaken, and there was some research which was done in relation to the growing of crops. And where certain crops were focused on by men, then there would be an increase in income, and then they saw a rise in the amount of alcohol entering into the home and so on, and leisure activities compared with women. And when those women's crops thrived, then the families thrived and the communities thrived. Well, we want to see our communities thrive.
Yes.
We want to see our families whole.
Yeah.
We want to see our youth have realize their potential.
Yeah.
And the heart of that will be women being equipped and empowered, women being economically savvy and enabled. And those are opportunities that come through us being able to climb the career ladder and being able to make the contribution that each and every one of us has the potential to make.
So goosebumps. We've got so much to talk about. The conversation has been ongoing and will continue to be ongoing between us. But for now, we'll leave it there. All I want you to be able to tell us right now is, how do we contribute to this piece of research, and where do we sign?
Brilliant. So there is a link. I haven't got the link directly because it's a Bitly link, but there is a link, and wherever you post this, Dee, I will give you the link to send to that post so that people can click onto that. The survey will take no longer than around about 7 to 10 minutes, and you'll really be making a difference to a very important conversation.
Fantastic. And do you only want Black women to fill in this survey?
So we want Black women, we want women of dual heritage, so women who have some link to the Caribbean or to the African continent to contribute to this.
Right, brilliant. And anything else that you want to say in closing?
Oh, just thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you so much to all of the ladies who will participate and contribute in this. We really appreciate it. We know that it's time for us to build a legacy that lasts for generations, and it's through us coming together and our collective efforts that will enable that to happen.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like it is just a time for us to act now. That we're talking a lot. There's been a lot of talking, especially over the last year, a lot of talking, and this is just one very practical way that we can begin to shift the needle. So in taking very positive and very clear action. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to. I've started my survey and I'll complete it this afternoon, and I'm really grateful to you for all that you are doing with She Leads for Legacy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.